Today we broke out the classics. We went to our world map, picked a town, and then made a town map and quest for that place. This town making was a little bit different in that it involved me using some new techniques that I can put into the old town making DM toolbox. The quest is also a nice choose which side you're on type dealio that involves an assassination, some stealth, or diplomacy. If you want to use this quest or the town it's a part of, then check out the Patreon where all resources I've ever made exist. Thank you to everybody who's already done that. I really appreciate it. And check out the Twitch if you want to make this stuff with us live. And with that, let's talk about this town and quest we made. Something notable about the map and quest we're going to talk about today is that throughout most of the process creating both, especially the quest, I felt lost. You know what? Let's do some roads. I'm feeling a little bit directionless. Not sure why. What do they do? Dark brown than light. So let's emulate that. I couldn't tell you why. So let's make some roads and then we can just put some houses down based off that. And I think that'll help me go. And usually when I get I feel a little bit stuck like this, I usually try to just make some moves. And then, if I like them, I like them. And if I want to make changes later, I can make changes later. But it really prevents me from having that feeling of I'm stuck. I don't know how to progress. I'm scared of doing something wrong. And I definitely feel that way a little bit now. I'm not sure why. So this will help me sort of free of that, make some moves, see what I like, see what I don't like, and then, go from there. Nothing came easy, and I never really got into the flow of quest making where everything just sort of falls into place. An experience which is all too common for any DM. So I'm going to reference some of the things I did to push through these feelings, and even though I felt like I was wading water a little, I ended with a map and a quest I'm really happy with. Onto the town map, I always like giving towns a unique touch that make them different from a regular town. For this place, which we call Buffarianville, I decided this touch could be having lots of little clusters of houses, then placing gardens or courtyards around them. This would then become a staple throughout the town. While Incarnate is incredible for making town maps, it does lack small infrastructure and furniture that can flesh out the town, only really having barrels, carts, and lanterns, which are all great, but a little limited. So I decided to import my second ever item into Incarnate, a bench, which I think worked out pretty well and would be something I'd use throughout the map. It's also something I only recently realized you could do, and I'm keen to keep importing items so I can keep improving and specializing towns to fit my needs. This leads us to another funky fresh map making technique, one that I would be pulling out for the very first time. Making a railroad. On our world map, I placed down a bunch of rails. These are actually 2D Gothic railings from the top-down map section and not the same 3D perspective as the rest of the map. They really nicely integrated on a big world map when all you really need to represent a railroad is a long silver line, but on a more zoomed in town map, the stone railing stamp doesn't really look like a railroad, shockingly. So we needed to find something to represent a railroad, and the 3D stamps don't really have anything that will do that, so we would need to lean on 2D stamps. What we would do is use the same Gothic railing that we used for the world map, then put down wooden walls as the struts in between them. To cap this off and to really sell the whole 3D perspective, we would place down the classic wooden barrier you find at the end of every train track. Despite all of these stamps being 2D and not 3D, I think we did a great job of creating a train track that feels totally in place with the rest of the map. Obviously, this is helped quite a lot by the fact that railroads are mostly flat on the ground, but either way, I was really happy with what we came up with. I didn't really know how to sink my teeth into this town map, and a classic thing to lean on is the predominant elements we see on the world map that we are emulating. In this case, the aforementioned railroad. Similarly, for lawmaking, we can lean on what we already have. The most notable narrative is that this town is part of Magasan, which lost a war to its neighbor, the Assembly Line, 30 years ago, and since then has been ruled by them. We decided for this town specifically, it's far enough away from the Assembly Line or any of the main cities that it would more or less be able to self-govern. This would naturally create a possibility for factionalism, a divide between those that really want Magasan independence and the old government system to come back, and those that don't really mind the new government, even if they're not too fond of them. Either the most notable pieces of infrastructure, in this case the railroad, or those notable parts of the law would be great areas to build off when than creating a quest, but neither really seemed like the best stimulus or particularly interesting areas to dive into, so we would look elsewhere for inspiration. Instead, we would get guidance from a different source, a randomized NPC. I use the character randomizer all the time for NPCs. I think it's great for giving you challenges you have to write your way out of, or making you think about characters, the world, and quests in ways that you wouldn't usually, or simply giving you a different angle on a quest that really adds to it. With all that said, I never really go to it first as my port of call for the quest itself, so this would be something a little different. The NPC it gave us is old mate Safara, a wanderer looking for revenge for their destroyed business. For funsies, we made them about to start a candy store in their hometown. I mean, they're only 19. They probably don't have an established company up and running. They just filled out all their paperwork and were waiting on the first shipment of ingredients, but they were destroyed by the old guard pirates. The literal loan sharks they got money off to start the business demanded payment, which they couldn't pay, forcing them to flee. Now they're on a journey to get revenge on the old guard. Back to the making of Bufarianville, I would discover a new way to blend roads, which I loved. Let's actually do this little trick, and then we can flare it out. So these, maybe I go through and do that a bit more, because I do like flaring it out. So like these connecting sections aren't so, you know, they don't just connect, they like people would be walking the multiple ways, and I think it more naturally blends the paths. So yeah, I'm gonna get into the habit of doing this a bit more. Yeah, so I think this is a much more natural blend of the paths rather than it just sort of intersecting at a very obtuse angle. So that's definitely something I can keep doing in the future. And as I've been saying, you know, this is a quest where I'm trying, or map making, that I'm trying to like do a lot more stuff, learn some techniques, do some different things. And I think, you know, this is a good technique to integrate. And I think this is working super well. I mean, all of these roads, I think are connecting so much more naturally. And I think it's making like a pretty big difference. With one NPC down, I tried to formulate a possible quest, but was not really generating any ideas that I was too fond of. It was only until our second NPC when we would really make any progress on a possible quest. Both NPCs would be wanderers, and I thought it could be fun to have a quest where both asked the party to kill the other. While I conceptually like this as an idea, I don't know if it really worked in this setting, and I wasn't hugely sold, just as I hadn't really been sold on any quest elements we'd created so far, but I figured we could weave this into the quest one way or another. We'd been going for over 2 hours at this point, and in situations like this, where the quest narrative isn't really coming together, there's lots of ways to find some answers. We would use a few equally but somewhat opposing strategies for this quest. The first thing that could be really useful is willingness to scrap everything you have thought so far and going with something better. Knowing when to trash your ideas and not being too precious about materials, starting afresh, can often be the best way to get to a solid quest, rather than being bogged down in mire trying to make a quest idea work, which just isn't good. Which is what we did with the possible quest centered around trains or the differing political ideologies. The next thing you can do is kind of confusingly the opposite. It's simply committing to an idea. Even if you don't think it's great, just trying to add to it, trying to find a couple interesting angles on it, and just trying to make it work can be the best way forward. Searching for the perfect solution can sometimes be a trap and mean you don't get anything done and you're scrapping way too many ideas. Obviously, these are juxtaposed, but learning when and how to use these is great for getting through the mud of quest making when the thoughts aren't coming easily. So for me, as I was 2 hours in, with the town map mostly incomplete and about a page and a half of disparate lore, I figured, let's just commit to something and let's kind of make it work. Which we did, and it was useful, but we would lean on a third trick that would be hugely useful, which is getting more prompts to stimulate ideas. Even if you just use some of them or one aspect of it, this can give you just a single thought which you can build off. The most prominent way we used this was the NPC randomizer, and it was only till we went and made our third NPC that we would finally be making some actual progress on what you could consider a quest outline. What do we know about this quest? We want it to be an assassination quest, where the party are tasked to kill one of these two individuals. Tasked to kill one of these two individuals. But why? Why? So maybe we can get to town and these two individuals can be beefing. Yeah, I don't know if it's like selling itself to me. Let's get a third NPC and let's see if this does anything, right? Randomizer, what character will we get? Generate. B, ooh, changeling. Okay. Failed merchant. Oh, we have another failed merchant. Politician or bureaucrat. Survival. Ooh, okay. So something that's jumping out to me is maybe this character, this fee changeling, they're chaotic. Maybe what they could be doing is actually disguising themselves as these two characters and then committing crimes. And what started to happen, or maybe not crimes, but like mischief in the town. And as a politician, what they're gonna do is they're gonna like stamp out the crime by hiring the party to kill these two people. They're both wanderers, they're both explorers, they're not from the town. So they're like, let's have a little bit of chaos. I want to do it for funsies, but then I'm going to make this a political gain for myself by like having the party kill Safara, having the party kill Olga. That could be an interesting element. And whether the party figure out that they're the actual ones doing it, you know, could depend on whether they talk to these individuals, get into a dialogue, get into a conversation, or whether they're just like, all right, and they go kill them. Okay, I think we're making progress. And this is why we add this stuff, because, you know, the fact that they're a changeling and they're a politician, oh, okay, it's adding these elements. For a secret crime or misdeed, I mean, it connects. Cool. Yeah, this is, we're making progress here. I was in the swamp, but now I'm out of the swamp. Sometimes when I'm trying to create more complex quests that have multiple quest line and interesting dimensionality with multiple NPCs with different desires, it could just be too much for me to really conceptualize, and it's just sort of this weird globby mess in my brain, and I need to tie it down to something. So creating a small streamlined quest, figuring that out, then trying to introduce other options to the mix afterwards can be exactly what we need to do just to give a basis. This is where we created our first quest line and just committed to a set of ideas and just said, this is going to be quest line A. The changeling mayor hire the party to gather evidence of crime. The party can then follow either Olga or Safara, where they will eventually meet up together, and the party can eavesdrop in on them discussing a plot to kill Fee. At this point, this is enough evidence for them to jump out and capture them. They can then take the two back to Fee and get a reward. A simple 4-step quest. Get the job, follow and eavesdrop, capture people, get reward. For the first time in the quest creation process, I felt like there was a natural next step. This would be in regards to what to do with quest line B, which we made also fairly simple. Either when the party is eavesdropping or at some other point, the party can talk to Safara and Olga, who will tell them about the situation and how they believe Fee is framing them. They'll then ask the party to kill Fee on their behalf, as the party are going to have a much easier time of doing it than these two who are being watched by the town guards. If they do so, Safara and Olga will reward them, then all of them will need to flee the town. With the juices starting to actually flow a little bit, a third questline popped into mind that we thought would make sense, where the party actually saved the Wanderers' lives while also getting Fee out of power. I think we can keep it simple, in the sense that it's like, okay, well, how are they going to find this information out for Fee? We could do the same thing that we've done up here, where they sort of eavesdrops and listen in, but I think we could also just have a straight up interrogation. They're having these conversations with Fee, and why not have them so they just go, like, tell us the truth, and it's like a full on, maybe you get zone of truths out, maybe you're using some intimidation, getting these roles going where they're like, are you doing this thing? And if they admit it, maybe there's some guards in the room, maybe there's like some other people that can be backed up for evidence, and then they can go, great, you've admitted it, and they can go and tell whatever their name is, Druck, the truth, and they'll have the evidence. And it's the party sort of like being asked to kill some, or asked to capture some people. They listen in, have a conversation, learn the information, and then realize, hey, we can actually extort Fee for some money or whatever, or we can like give this information, interrogate it out of them, then give this information to their political opponent, and we'll have changed the dynamic of the town away from, you know, a person that frames others for fun to somebody else who maybe is a little bit iffy but still wants good for the town. So, and then, you know, Olga and Safara just are allowed to like leave the town or whatever. So I think this is sort of like an interesting, I don't know, it's an interesting alternate way that the party can affect the town without ever getting into a combat or really having to do anything bad. They just sort of talk to people, have good conversations, have good role play, and this sort of leads to a good reward. This third quest line caps off the different routes, and honestly, this quest has a few holes in it as far as character motivations go, but this is fine. When we can't find reason solutions that fit and make the quest flow really naturally, we try to add narrative that can mend these slight gaps. There's a lot that we did for this quest, but one of the things we said was, hey, this is a messy situation where people are acting somewhat illogically, and any incongruity the party feels is derived from the strange and poorly devised decision making made by the NPCs. In a highly uncommon turn of events, I finished the quest, then completed the world map afterwards, adding in some small paths from each of the main doors to the main paths, also going through and adding some extra bushes and trees in the outside areas of the map to make it feel more complete, finishing off what became quite an intricate and detail heavy map, and something that I was really excited with because, as I said at the beginning, I just didn't know where to go with it, and at the end I felt like, hey, this is a really cool map with a bunch of different features and techniques that I've never tried before in map making, so it was really satisfying to power through and get what we had at the end. The last thing we would do for this quest is make 2 more interior maps. One building where the party can meet Olga and Safara, and another map where the party can sneak in and kill Fee in their sleep. But I talk about both of those maps in a different video. As I've been saying, this was a muddy process from start to finish, but I'm really happy with the town map that we made, and the quest that we did is a little bit less clean than I would usually prefer. But I powered through working on it, using a few techniques to center myself and gather my thoughts, planning to create something, and I think we ended up with a really cool multi-dimensional quest, which can involve some stealth or an assassination, or the party straight up intimidating a town leader into admitting they're doing a bunch of crime. Lastly, check out the Patreon if you want access to this town map or quest or any D&D resource I make. Come and join us on Twitch if you want to make this stuff with us live, and subscribe to the channel if you want more D&D weekly uploads. And as always, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!